everybody, and welcome back. My name is Mel, and today we're going to be talking about my winter TBR. Please excuse the kind of lacking decorations behind me. I've not gotten all of my decorations out yet, so I did want to kind of get into the festive spirit. So we're going to get this a lot more fleshed out as the season goes on, but I did want to bring you guys my winter TBR. So this is actually not going to include Christmas romances because I had a bunch of those and I had several people asking for what my Christmas romance TBR was going to look like, so I decided to do that separately. This is going to include winter TBR, so new releases coming out through like February-ish, as well as backlist thriller books and adult like polar fantasy winter vibe type books. So let's just get started with the backlist thrillers that scream winter to me. The first one is Voices in the Snow by Darcy Coates. I have been on a Darcy Coates kick recently and I'm living my best life and having a great time. This one is definitely her winter book. I don't know if she's got a lot of other winter books, but this one's the one that I've heard the most about. I've heard really good things. I don't know that it is a haunted house book, but apparently it is part of a series, which I did not know. And it's about a woman that remembers the cold. She remembers abandoned cars and children's toys, but and then she can't remember anything at all, but when she wakes up, she is alone in a stranger's gothic home, and he tells her that she was in an accident. The stranger seems kind, but he's also a little bit weird. There's a claustrophobic storm. Her car crash wasn't an accident. Something is waiting for her to step outside the fragile safety of the house. Something monstrous, something unfeeling. So I don't know that it is a haunted house story, but it does sound really interesting and really cool. So I'm excited to give that one a try. And then we have Cockroaches, by Jo Nesbø. This is the second book in the Harry Hole series, I believe. It's about a detective. These are they Nordic noir? I'm not 100% sure, but they're set in cold. Like, that's just kind of Jo Nesbø's thing, he is kind of that cold. It's not the Snowman, although I do really want to read the Snowman, but I kind of feel like I need to read them in order. And I've heard that the first 1 and 2, not that great. The series really picks up with 3, but Snowman's like book 10. Anyway, Jo Nesbø gives me cold vibes, so he's definitely going on this list. And then we have The Witch Hunter by Max Seek. I actually accidentally bought The Coven, which is book 2, a few years ago at a buy one get one free sale. And then I realized, crap, that's book 2, so I actually have to go back and read book 1. This one, I think, involves a serial killer. A best-selling author's wife was found dead. Her face was frozen in a ghastly smile. At first, it seems as though the psychopath is reenacting gruesome murders from The Witch Hunter, which is a bestseller written by the victim's husband. But the investigator soon realizes that she's not looking for one killer, but dozens of believers in a sinister form of witchcraft. So it's kind of a detective story. The cover is just covered in snow, so got to be a winter read, and I'm looking forward to it. It's been on my radar for a while now. The next one is The Nothing Man by Catherine Ryan Howard. This one I've heard around, but I've actually, I don't know, I didn't have a whole lot of interest in it for a while, but then I read whatever her COVID book was, and it wasn't bad. It wasn't my favorite, but it wasn't bad. So The Nothing Man did pop up more on my radar not too long ago. And it's about a girl that at the age 12 was the only member of her family to survive an encounter with the serial attacker, the Nothing Man. She's now an adult and she's obsessed with identifying this serial killer. Jim Doyle, who is a supermarket security guard, has just started reading The Nothing Man, which is a true crime memoir that Eve wrote about her goal to track down this family killer. Interestingly, I feel like this blurb is spoilery. I don't know for sure if it is, but that last line seems awfully spoilery, so I'm not gonna read it. I'm not exactly sure how this is wintry, but I saw it on a winter list and I've wanted to read it, so we're putting it on the list. And then the last backlist thriller is The Ice Princess by Camilla Luckenberg. I got this recommendation from Crime by the Book over on Instagram, and I believe that this is a translated work. This is about a woman that returns home after the funeral of her parents, and she finds the community on the brink of a tragedy. The death of her childhood friend is just the beginning. Her wrists are slashed, her body is frozen in an ice-cold bath, and it seems that she took her own life. Erica conceives a book about the beautiful but remote Alex, one that will answer questions about their own shared past, but when her interest grows into obsession, a local detective is following his own suspicions about the case. but it's only when they start working together that the truth begins to emerge about a small town with a deep, disturbing past. It sounds interesting. I'm curious. I don't normally wouldn't pick up something like this, but with her recommendation, and I've heard several people talk about it and say it was good, figured I might as well give it a try. I guess let's go and do the polar fantasy, or fantasy that gives me winter vibes. Not all of these are polar fantasy, but they do just kind of give me that cold feeling. The first of which is going to be The Ranger of Marzana by John Scroven. Oh gosh, I'm not even going to try. I will put the cover up so you guys can see it. This one I've seen several times at the bookstore and just never picked it up. And then Cassidy mentioned it one day and I was like, oh yeah, I've seen that cover before. And it just really piqued my interest. The first book doesn't get great reviews, but the later ones do. It's about a family where their father is murdered by Imperial soldiers and these two siblings set out on opposite paths. That's a really fun trope I really enjoy, is siblings on opposite sides. One wants to destroy the Empire and the other one wants to save it. This is a Russian-inspired epic fantasy, and I'm really interested in it. I love siblings on opposite sides. I've never read a Russian... I take that back. The only Russian-inspired fantasy that I've read is The Bear and the Nightingale, which I think is going to be very, very different from this one, and I'm interested to give it a go. Then we have The Coward by Stephen Aron. This one I've seen around a lot, and originally when it first came out, it wasn't getting the best of reviews, and so I kind of put it off. But then Rachel said that she enjoyed it, and so it put it back on my radar again. This is about Kel, who is a legend, a celebrity, and a hero. He's 17, and he set out on an epic quest with a band of grizzled fighters to slay the Ice Lynch and to save the world. But only he returned victorious. The Lynch is dead, and the ice receded, and the 5 kingdoms were saved. But now we are 10 years later, he's living a farmer's life, and the stories of his heroism are told in every tavern across the breadth of the land. But now there's a new terror arising in the north. Beyond the Frozen Circle, the North Frostrunner clans, something has taken up residence in the abandoned castle, and the ice is beginning to creep south once more. It sounds really interesting. I don't know that I'd ever really read the blurb before, but I'm into it. I definitely want to give it a try. Then we have Winter's Fury by A.E. Rain. This one popped up when I was just looking through Amazon and through like my Kindle Unlimited indie type winter fantasies, and it gets really good reviews. It says, in a world ruled by men, one woman will rise. She was their greatest warrior, the daughter of a king, but her uncle stole the throne and sent her away to marry a man, a drunken son of the worst enemy. Now she must pick up her sword again and restore her family's honor and return to the home that she loves. It seems like it could have a little bit of a romance to it, which I'm not 100% sure how I feel about, but it does seem like an epic fantasy, so I'm curious to see how the semi-romance component of it plays into the epic fantasy role. I really like the cover. I'd love to give it a try. Then we have one that is not at all winter. It just gave Rachel cold vibes, and I can see it, and that's The Prince of Thorns by Mark Lawrence. This is one that you hear about constantly in a grimdark setting. People talk about it all the time, being like one of the best grimdark books ever written. The main character is supposed to be like a psychopath. I don't know a ton about the plot of the book. I think it is very, very character driven, but I just got the beautiful edition from Broken Binding, and so I'm really, really hoping I love it, because I probably shouldn't have bought it without reading it first, but I was convinced. So fingers crossed that I love it. I do want to read it sometime this winter, especially since I just got the beautiful edition, and I'm hoping it's good. And then the last one that I wanted to mention is The Song of All. This one's been on my radar for a little while. It's by Tina LeCount Myers, but I have not really heard anybody talk about it. I know it's on Cassidy's TBR as well, and I think she started it, and something about it wasn't working for her, and so she put it down but plans to pick it back up again. It's about a former warrior that's caught between gods and priests and must fight for the survival of his family in this dark epic fantasy debut. It's in a harsh Arctic world inspired by Scandinavian indigenous cultures. So that sounds really cool. It's set on the forbidden fringes of the tundra. It is definitely a polar fantasy. Okay, and then last but not least, let's quickly go over the 5 new releases / upcoming releases that I want to get to. The first one is Secluded Cabin Sleeps 6 by Lisa Ungler. I think this one is about a mom and her husband who agree to go with her brother to stay in this secluded cabin to kind of get away from the baby for a little while. And when they get there, stuff starts to go horribly wrong, as secluded cabins usually do. I did start this one, and I'll admit that I was not super loving the focus on motherhood. That's just not something that I personally enjoy reading about, and it was more of a domestic, is my husband doing something behind my back that he shouldn't be doing, and it was really kind of harping on that a little bit. So I did put it down, but I never really got to the plot of the secluded cabin, so I do want to try it again. It would be a great winter read. And then we have Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo. This one comes out in January. I'm so excited to get to this. This is the sequel to Ninth House. And while I really enjoyed Ninth House, I did have a lot of problems with it. However, I can see how the setup for book 2 is going to be something that I really, really enjoy. And look at that cover. It is disgusting, and I love it. Then we have The Drift by C.J. Tudor. C.J. Tudor is one of those that I usually enjoy but don't just absolutely love. And I'm hoping that I'm just going to find the one that really, really, really works for me from her in the near future. This is about 3 ordinary people that risk everything for a chance at redemption. And it's a catastrophe and survival at the end of the world. It does look like it's set in the snow just based on the cover. Oh, and it says that a former detective, Meg, is in a cable car suspended above a snowstorm and surrounded by strangers in the same uniform as her, with no memory how they got there. They're headed to a mysterious place known only as the Retreat, but they discover a dead man among their ranks, and Meg spies a familiar face. She realizes that there's something far more insidious going on. It sounds really interesting, and I'm hoping that this is the one that works for me. And that one comes out, I believe, in January as well. Then we have The Writing Retreat by Julia Bartz. I do have an arc of this one, so even though it comes out in February, I may read it a little bit earlier. This one's also set in a winter setting, and it says it's the plot meets Please Join Us in a psychological suspense about a young author at an exclusive writer's retreat that descends into nightmare. I don't know, it sounds relatively simple, and I have not read the plot, but it did not completely love Please Join Us. I'm hopeful that I will enjoy this. I do like snowstorms, secluded areas, catastrophic, claustrophobic type stories, so we'll see if this one works for me. And then last but not least, we have How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix, which comes out in January. I actually think this is going to be the officially unofficial Late Night Cruise book club pick for the month of January, so me and Cassidy and Rye will be all reading it together live, and hopefully people will join us and read it as well. Grady Hendrix is another one that I've enjoyed his books, but I'm just looking for that one that really, really, really works for me, and I've had a really hard time finding that. His books usually either sit at a solid 3 or barely scrape a 4, and I'm just wanting that one that's like a solid 4 or maybe even a 5-star read, and who knows, maybe this is it. Okay, everybody, so I think that is all 15 of my winter TBR books. I know I did run through those really fast, but I didn't want to harp too long on what all of these are about, because I feel like a lot of these are well known anyway, other than maybe a couple of the polar fantasy books. I don't know how many of these I'm gonna get to, but we'll see. This is the whole winter, so I'm not just including this for Christmas. This is gonna be like Christmas and January, February, because honestly, we get more snow in late January, early February than we do like end of November or early December anyway. So I think these are going to be perfect for the post-Christmas, yet I still want something cold kind of reads. So let me know down in the comments what is on your winter TBR, if there's anything that you think I should read, because I'm always looking for more snowy settings. I think that it's a ton of fun, but there's just not a lot out there. So let me know down in the comments if you would recommend any. Thank you guys so very much for hanging out with me. If you want to connect with me a little bit more, links to my Patreon as well as Instagram, Twitter, and Goodreads, all down in the description box below. Please give this video a big thumbs up if you liked it, subscribe if you wanna, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!